Welcome back to episode 168 of the Disorganized Wizard Club podcast. My name is Alex. I'm joined as always by Adam.
Hello.
And Cam.
Hello.
And we're a group of auto-based players that play just about anything and everything we can qualify for. We talk about decks, tournament stories, just about anything to help you and ourselves get better at Magic.
Limited Magic in particular.
Limited Magic this week, boys.
Yeah, I'm excited.
We haven't done one of these in a while.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute.
It's been a while since there was like a format worth doing one for.
Yeah, what was the last set we did a limited episode on? We skipped
a couple sets
We
ago.
skipped Throne. We skipped Core Set.
And then
No, we did one on Corset.
we did
we?
Corset. Oh yeah, Corset.
Yeah, we
was
talked
awesome.
about the 1-2
Okay,
punches.
we skipped War, right?
We skipped, yeah.
Yo, we skipped
Yeah.
War. We
Everyone
came in.
skipped War.
We came in and and just flat refused. We even said, "Yeah, we're
I did not play a single game of that format.
I came in and I said I played it. Remember, I played a ton, and I was like, "This is the worst format I've played in years. We're not doing a limited episode. It's unbelievably garbage. I can't believe that this format even exists. It's horrendous." Yeah, I was outraged, and so because of that lingering anger, I think we also skipped. You know what I mean?
We didn't entirely skip Throne of Eldraine. I mean, we didn't do like a dedicated limited episode going through the archetypes, but we talked about it following the GP in Montreal. Andrew was on.
Yeah.
Oh, right. We
did
did.
take
Yeah.
Yeah. We
But
didn't do like
a deep dive.
Yeah, but it was
Yeah.
still pretty in depth. I wasn't there for that one, but it was because all three of you day two'd and had a good run at that.
I guess we are more on the ball than I thought.
Yeah, well, like you'd assume,
Surprise.
being on name brand recognition, that would be just an absolute disaster. But we're only partially one, and I mean that was War's fault. That's not ours.
Yeah.
That format was bad. I also think like Guilds of Ravnica is also not the best limited format, only because there was only one archetype.
Yeah.
Healer,
Ravnica Allegiance, though.
Healer Hawk overall. Man, that card was wild. I did a throwback draft the other day. Had 2 Healers Hawks.
Oh, yeah.
Easiest
it's ranked-
7.
It was ranked on. Is it still ranked on?
Yeah,
Arena?
I think so.
easiest 7 wins of my life.
Dude, you love to see it.
Did the,
you
have
know-
the bots learned?
Yeah, I seem to get less Healer Hawks. And you know what's funny? My 2 losses were obviously to the mirror, but because they had Boros Challengers on top of it, they went Hawk Challenger. And I was like, yeah, on the play. And I lost, obviously, instantly. And other games, I hawked people. And that was it. I don't know. It's crazy. People were trying to play like blue,
Yeah.
green, black. I was like, what are you guys
Get outta
doing?
here.
What are you guys doing?
Remember when people said Dimir was the best archetype in that format?
They were like insistent too, remember? We were
Even
like,
at the end of it.
we were like, what are you guys talking about? Like, just hammer drop people.
Like, I was saying that Boros is clearly the best, and then Selesnya after that, because you can start in white, and if the red doesn't work out, then you can just convoke out a bunch of stuff with your Healer Hawks.
Yeah, and maybe survive because of some life gain.
Yeah, you have like a bunch of life gain to like contest the Boros decks until you can like start attacking with your 4/4s.
And the white still gets to play Intrusive Pack Beast. And let me tell you,
Yeah.
that card's awesome.
And then other people were like, no, like Dimir's the best. Like I've had a lot of things with Dimir. Like,
Didn't we? Then
is
when,
it? I
and,
can
then,
like cast spells.
and then the win percentages came out, and it was just so like comically Boros by like, remember that?
Yeah.
Like, because they released the draft. This was before the Pro Tour. They released the draft percentages from the Pro Tour. And it was just like 80% of like the undefeated decks were Boros. Like it wasn't even close. We were like, I mean, yeah, we were literally ranting about this, and everyone thought we were crazy. Like people were like, nah, Dimir's like pretty good. We're like, nah, you guys just literally don't understand. What was it? Cosmo Wave?
Cosmotronic Wave.
Oh, holy, what a card.
That card is the best.
Dude, I mean, there's
Cheesed out
basically
so many wins with that card.
so many cheesy
God
wins.
damn.
There's basically another one of them in this set too.
Rapping Flames?
Hell yeah.
Not the same, but almost as good.
Speaking of releasing data, though, do you guys hear Frank Karsten got banned?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Banned from posting info.
Yeah. InfoWars.
Yeah, there's been a lot of
Your experience will be curated.
there's been a lot of discourse about this over the past couple of weeks since he announced that. Do you guys have any hot takes based on the
I don't know why they're so scared of data.
Everywhere data is in chains and yearns to be free. Or was it information is in chains and yearns to be free? I think that's what most people think, right? That they think it should be
Yeah,
released.
just give us the data.
Just give everyone the So I made a take that maybe I can see a world where it's good to restrict it. Old authoritarian Adam coming at you, apparently.
I guess like the idea is that you don't want the format to be solved super quick. You want people to kind of figure out their own way to approach the format rather than just allowing like the data to be released and then everyone just kind of follows it like sheep.
Yeah. But I think that argument's ultimately actually kind of bad, right? Because having more data allows you to metagame better, like maybe theoretically. I don't know. Like I don't really, I think it's like way too complicated of an issue. to really decide. So like I don't really fault WotC for controlling the information, and I can see them like saying, "Oh, this didn't really matter," and reverting back.
Personally,
I don't know.
And this is just my personal opinion, I would rather have access to the data to understand what meta I'm getting into and feel like I could use my creativity to attack an expected metagame and then go to a tournament and see how that plays out. Understand what matchups I'm going to play, understand how I want to play them, and see if I can brew in that space rather than brainstorm some decks that I think are going to be good, see how they play against each other, pick the best one, and then go play against random stuff that I've never seen.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. But
Well, that's just your opinion, man.
I think that's like the old school like Magic player dream, right? It's like, all right, like cook this brew up in the kitchen, like time to take it to the GP, right? And then like you get there with your sick brew and everyone's on Sarah Angels and you're like, oh shit. And you just lose, right? Like that's what happened. It's like the problem with that is like back in the day and now the people in the know are just going to win every tournament. Like the people with the time and resources to test win every tournament, right?
Yeah.
Theoretically speaking, like, you know what I mean? If you restrict data, like if you make it so that like all the data is not available to people, then I think, again, I could be wrong, that it means that people who can, you know, just have the most time and the resources to allocate to testing and like all these things like sort of make them unbeatable, right? Like it enshrines certain players.
Yeah.
Which
This is just a conspiracy to maintain the top.
Yeah, to make it look like Magic has more consistency than it does.
Some people were making the take that they were restricting data to give the MPL an advantage over everybody else.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
Doesn't it though? These people are paid to spend all their time thinking about Magic, and if anybody wants to contest that, they have to spend part of their time earning money some other way to eat. And there's no data available to them. They can't gather their own.
This is a great conspiracy.
Yeah, well, it's not even, it's just like the, outcome of like the consequence of doing this, right? Is like the data is going to like having data restriction will skew results in particular ways. Like, but I think WotC wants that to happen. Like I think they want the MPL and pros and whatever public Magic figures to be the ones to consistently win, because having the image of like the best players win consistently is really important for the game. From a marketing perspective, it's like also super hyper important for them from like gambling reasons. Like they're really nervous about
the fact
that the literal best win percentage of players is like 60%.
Yeah, I kind of agree, but wouldn't you say that they would prefer to have a decent churn in the MPL every year so they can kind of sell the dream to us scrubs that, hey, you can do this too. It's constantly churning while you still have like a few players that can consistently stay in it to also sell that dream that, hey, you can get here and maintain it for a decent amount of time.
Yeah, I think they kind of like have to abandon that, because I think if you like have a brain, like,
yeah, I think
you're going to realize like that's impossible. Like, what are you going to do? Take a year off to play on the MPL and then, you know what I mean? Like, it's just not a sustainable thing for most people. It's like saying like, I think that argument is like saying like, well, you know, I'm just going to like, I'm going to play Dota until like I can make the international, and like, you know, maybe I'll make the international 1 year and churn off the team. Like if I don't make it, like, whatever. Right. And it's like, well, it's like not really how pro gaming works. Like usually it's people who just commit completely and fully to it. Right. And so like, I think that like selling the idea of like, I don't know, people with like actual jobs and lives, like, you know, this like dream of playing in the MPL is like pointless. Like I don't even think you actually want that from like an esports perspective. Like, in fact, you want there to be like a pro scene separate from like people. I don't know. I think
if you wanted to sell the dream that a casual or hobby Magic player could sort of bust into the MPL or do well or make the Pro Tour, then you should release all the data so that they can have a good deck to go spike a tournament with.
Yeah.
But like holding back the data doesn't sell that dream.
Yeah.
Or restricts that.
But I think that dream is like, A, non-existent, and B, like kind of dumb of them to push anyway. Like I think you'd rather have it just these like the MPL as these sort of like like Paulo, like all these like people who are like, wow, they're the greatest of all time. They're so much smarter than you and better. Like, because that's like what they already push anyway, even if it's like not true, right? It's like you know, people are. That's just kind of how like being a professional at something works. It's not like you casually do it and like you can also just like luck into a paycheck while doing it. Like that's not really how it works. So I think that's like something WotC should like move away from. I think they should it sounds crazy. They should be more elitist with like who is a pro and like who's consistently playing, and they should reward people who are just consistently playing all the time. Like, I think things should be like contractually given, not even based like completely on results. Like, I don't know. It's like so complicated how
So
you like
just to play devil's advocate here, do you think the story of Chris Kovartek last year was bad for them, or do you think that look was a really good look for them?
No, I think that's really good. I think you got to reward like exceptional standouts and then like offer them that position. But then like you have to give them like some form of consistency. Like you can't just have them have like a bad year the next year and then like that's it for him in the like sport, quote unquote.
Well, yeah,
like,
that's what I was saying, right? Like they want to sell the Kovartek story of like you can go from zero to hero essentially from like a no one to MPL, and also when you get there, it's not like just a one and done. You can still maintain it.
Yeah. As long as, but the problem is like people churn out too easily. Like 1 year is not long enough. Like I don't know. Like the problem is just like a funding issue. I think too in Magic, like there's not enough money still, which is crazy because they're dumping like tons into it, but it's still like kind of nothing when you think about it. Like,
well, yeah, like the biggest events are all hosted by two companies, right? Like WotC themselves and then Star City. There aren't really other huge tournament series, which I mean, DreamHack is having its first one this weekend, actually.
Yeah.
DreamHack Anaheim. So
I
there
think
are
that's
more
like super
bigger
good
events like that, then
I'm
Big
like
arena tournament?
super.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's awesome.
Yeah. I'm like super pro DreamHack. Like, I mean, that's kind of what we're trying to do with like the organizational, right? Like, we just have more people playing competitive Magic. Like, I think that's good for the game. Like, not everyone has to be a pro. Like, I don't know. Like, DreamHacks are awesome. Like, the DreamHacks for other games, in my experience, like I go to DreamHacks all the time. They're so much fun. So I'm really happy to see Magic like at a DreamHack.
yeah.
What was that tournament you just mentioned that's coming up here soon?
Oh, the DWC Organizational coming to you March 1st, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our standard best of 3 tournament hosted on MTG Arena.
Wow, I can play in a tournament from home?
For free.
Wow, for free?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do I get for wasting my whole afternoon playing against people?
It's your road to stardom.
You can become the DWCO champion.
Wait, but there's prizes.
There
is
are
prizes.
prizes for our free tournament. Wizards Tower, the greatest sponsor of this podcast, has forked out store credit for the top 8, and we're giving a box of Theros Beyond Death to first place.
Yeah, a whole box.
Whole box.
We shipped out some, like, what did we ship out the other time? Like a foil Teferi.
Yeah, there were a bunch of people who won store credit and because of their place, like where they lived in the world, couldn't use it. So they sort of, we spent it for them because they sort of sent us an order and then we mailed them the cards. Some people ordered a Teferi, other people ordered like Veil of Summers or something they needed.
Yeah, so wherever you are in the world, I mean, register. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
March
if you win
1st.
store credit, you can spend it. We can ship you whatever you spend it on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And we're going to stream the whole event over at twitch.tv/disorganized Wizards Club. It's going to be a great day. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, no doubt.
Speaking of other MTG Arena tournaments, not quite as important, but the World Championship was this past weekend.
Yeah, PV with another victory.
Taken down by the GOAT.
Yeah, the GOAT, the greatest of all time, the greatest to ever do it. I mean, what do you want at this point?
Yeah.
That guy's conversion rate is like actually obscene. Like it sort of defies every other pro's conversion rate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like to win at the percentage he does at the highest level is like everyone else is floating around like, I don't know, 65 or something. Or, he's just at like an enormous
crazy.
conversion rate. Like he's so good.
I mean, and this was the biggest Magic tournament ever. Largest prize pool, $300,000 to first place.
Yeah. He's the best player of all time. It's like he's playing in an era where Magic is its most competitive. Playing digital means that there's not issues that maybe that come out for other players in the past. Like, I just don't even think like I'm not implying like other Hall of Fame people like did anything shady. I'm just saying that like you can't even pretend.
It's much
There's no
harder
room
to
for
succeed
suspicion.
now.
Yeah, like exactly. Like he's the GOAT and it's not close. I don't
There's
even
some
think.
script running in the background of the PCs he plays on, altering the client in his favor.
Yeah, like it's just not even close. Like I don't know what else to say. I like don't even like his blue-white list. Other than I really like the addition he made from the old list that Baumeister played with no search or thirst for meanings. The thirsts are really good. I like parts, but yeah, I don't even think his list is like that insane. But I don't know. Maybe it was like can't doubt Paulo.
Did you guys get to watch much coverage?
I watched a little here and there, but I was pretty busy on the weekend.
I think they did a really good job of the coverage. The draft coverage, like I mentioned in the pre-show, was phenomenal. I think they did a really good job with that. And I think they could take a lot of that to make just limited coverage in general at their events a lot better, which was cool to see. The finals, I watched the entire finals where they did, Paulo had to win 2 best of 3 matches and Marcio had to win 3 because he came from the lower bracket.
Yeah.
But I think in arena tournaments, I'd like to see this a lot more actually, to do like a best of 2 out of 3 matches. Like you have to win 2 matches out of like 5 matches or something like that. Instead of just doing like best of 5, you actually just do series of
best of 3s.
Best of 3s, yeah.
Oh yeah, I see what
like
you're
best
saying.
of 3 of 3.
Why would you prefer that?
I liked it a lot more. There was a lot more gameplay. The finals felt like an appropriate final, you know? There was a lot more games to be played. It went all the way to the 5th match. Everything was super exciting to watch. And I don't know, it just felt like they battled for it a lot more because there was so much more Magic going on.
I guess that also makes more sense with the way that Magic sideboards after the first game, because it always felt kind of strange in best of 5s to have 2 unsideboarded games.
Agreed.
And then 3. Like it throws the ratio off.
Yeah, I hated that because it changes your matchups. Like it warps the play pattern in the Pro Tour like a lot.
Yeah.
So I agree.
Yeah, but I really liked how they did it. And I think I'd like to see something more like that for the paper players tours or more arena events going forward. I get the structure of the World Championship was kind of stupid, I found. I think a lot of people also agreed on that the format wasn't the best, but I did like the best of 3 of 3 kind of thing they did for the finals. I thought that was really good to watch, and I hope they adopt that again. But we won't spend too much time talking about the World Championship because we have a whole bunch of limited to get to. I haven't played much limited in this format. I've been mostly working on standard for the past couple of weeks since Phoenix, but you guys have been drafting a lot. You have a lot to say about the format.
I haven't been playing it a ton. I've been like sort of slacking off on playing Magic, but I took yesterday and played a bunch of drafts, and I had known what people were saying about the format, and so played a bunch yesterday to get a sense for it, to prep for this episode, and I did a lot of losing. Because it was my first time really like playing the format, I made a bunch of mistakes, but I think they're instructive mistakes. But yeah, I didn't do super hot. I have a lot less gems than I started with. I broke even on one draft and otherwise got like some packs. But Adam's been playing it a ton.
Oh yeah. Probably played like 1,000 sealed drafts, like combined. Yeah, holy. Yeah, it's actually outrageous how much I was doing it. Yeah, I think one night I played like, I don't know, probably 25, 30 drafts. Like just cruising through them. Like, I don't know. I probably played for like 15. I mean, it's reading week, you understand.
Yeah. Well, what is he going to do?
We have the week off, yeah. Like I was just like in my boxers, just like drinking water, like, you know, ingesting edibles.
Yeah.
Just drafting, man, just having a time. This format is wild. There's so many things you can do. There's so many ways you can sort of approach your picks, your pick orders. You know, this isn't a format where pick order is even, we'll talk about this, but it's pretty complicated in the sense that all your picks are dependent on archetype decisions. Like there are certain things you should consider as better early picks because they leave you open to more archetypes, and that's actually really important.
Yeah, so this is, I think, why I wasn't doing super well yesterday is because I was approaching the format for basically the first time for draft. I was just sort of, drafting it like I would any other format because I didn't know. Like I was just taking cards that I thought seemed good, hoping to sort of get support. I had heard cards like Sentinel Eyes were good, so I would take them when I saw them without really considering if I was in a deck that properly supported Sentinel's Eyes. I didn't even know what those decks were. I was just kind of taking cards, and I didn't realize how deep or intricate this format actually was and how variable your pick orders need to be based on what archetypes and what version of that archetype you're drafting. And so because of this, I got sort of decks that just limped along and had cards that maybe shouldn't have been in them while my opponents knew what they were doing and would just crush me.
Yeah, it's just really important that you get a bunch of sort of synergistic picks within your archetype in this format. Like you really can't, what was his name again? Who switched in the world?
Thrall Severin.
Yeah, Thrall Severin. He's black, red, or whatever during pack 1. Pack 2, he opens a Dream Trawler and takes it, train wrecks his entire draft, and loses every single game afterwards. And it's because in this format, like just having a bomb, like a Dream Trawler isn't enough. I guess like you can't just have a deck that's like just good stuff usually. Like you need to have some
that's
sort
what
of
I was
plan.
drafting at first, and my opponents just rolled me over.
Yeah, like usually people hit you with like cheesy 1-2 punches, like good combos, like all these things matter because there's so many things going on in the format. Like even within the archetypes, there's like cute little combos or really unique interactions between cards. Like stack order matters a ton. Like this format has a ton going on for how things work. So yeah, it's really important. Super intricate format. I think it's really fun. I think every color combination and archetype can win. Like we're not going to talk about it in our discussion of archetypes, but even monocolor decks can win, you know?
Yeah.
I've won some drafts with mono black decks. Mono black was the only one I won with actually, but
I lost to a mono blue deck that seemed really good.
yeah. And they're rare, right? Like, but it can happen. Like it can happen, but I'm not saying that you should go for it. I'm saying that if all the stars align, that, you know, there are times where you can monocolor people, but it's pretty risky. I mean, obviously, because you're going to end up with, you know, cards that aren't playable in your deck. But if you can, you know, yeah, it can totally happen. You can totally win. I just had a bunch of gray merchants.
Yeah, I mean, that'll do it. The other sort of general impression that I had of this format playing yesterday is that based on my experience from past limited formats, I was hesitant to play kind of what in my mind were non-2 drops, like 2 mana 2/2s or most 1 drops. Like in other formats, they don't scale into the late game well enough, and you end up just kind of down a card virtually. So I was hesitant, and I wasn't really playing them. I was only playing 2s that I thought were very good, and then 3s and 4s. And I found that my deck just wasn't really functioning without being able to focus on the early game and curve out, because I would play a 3-drop, my opponent would remove it, then I wouldn't have anything to put, say, my Iroas' Blessing on, or other enchantments, or even things like Rage Scarred Berserker, or et cetera, they wouldn't have targets. I'd play them for no value, while my opponents, like 1 and 2 drops that stuck around, were now holding important enchantments.
Yeah. You got to really play for the early board in this format, because your escape cards are usually your late game, right? Or you have 1 or 2 kind of top end bombs. Like obviously you're going to play like a Cure, Best of Sea God, or an Ashiok, like just these unbeatable. I mean, there's a ton of just windmill slam bombs in this format. Like you won't even look at the rest of the pack. You know, you just see a card, don't even look, taking it, right? And you figure out the rest later. That's pretty common. So because of that as well, yeah, you really need to have your early game shored up so that you actually have a chance, you know, to beat those late game cards that people are going to have later, you know, but also to make it so you get to cast yours later, right? Like you need to win this early. You got to win late game.
Yeah, like there are cards that will do both. Like I really came around on cards like Loathsome Chimera. I thought a 4/1, it'll trade, it won't do anything, but that you can play it early. And then it's also a late game, because as your early creatures have traded, you have stuff in your yard, you just bring it back.
It also has a bunch of synergy.
It has a bunch of synergy too, yeah. But like, I lost a bunch of games to just like being a bit too slow. My opponents curved out. I finally dealt with that stuff, and then they escaped the things that I had killed earlier, and I had nothing left.
Yeah.
So, like another example, like cards that have come around on Pious Wayfarer, I thought was just a 1-drop that was cute and filler, but just having it around is important. It helps you win combat. Like if your other creatures are enchantment creatures, the constellation trigger is frequent enough that it's probably just a 2/3, which outsizes, which is pretty big in the format.
There's a bunch of flash enchantments. Like you know what I mean?
It can be a good combat trick. Like
yeah. You can use it in really interesting ways. Like there's good flash combat tricks. Even actually, I shouldn't use this as an example, because I think this card's actually like mostly unplayable, which is like the White Omen.
Yeah, that one is. I thought should be good, and it was never impressive.
I thought it'd be good too. I mean, like the omens are never like the end of the world, mostly because the scry can always be helpful. But like, yeah, those ones are pretty bad. Like the white one definitely underperformed.
Yeah, the white one seems like it's only really good in the kind of white or red go wide strategy, and outside of that specific deck, it's just not very good.
Yeah, it's really good in white red hero, like the heroic deck. It's good there, but everywhere else it's bad. That's kind of what I mean about pick order, right? It's like, it's because that card is so bad in any other white deck, but in heroic, it's like, yeah, it's pretty good, you know, because of heroes, right? Because of the heroic targets where all your creatures get +1/+0, Hero of the Wind, or the other common heroes, the 2-drops, you know, like, or the red hero. Yeah, it looks awesome there, but yeah, this format's really weird as far as that goes, because there are numerous cards that are only good in their archetype. And I think one of the mistakes people make when you're playing this format is like picking like the Omen of the Sun or whatever, because you think, well, I'm in white, I'm in blue-white control or whatever. How bad could it be?
Yeah, it's a
gonna
solid
block.
white common.
It's like, well, no, it's trash. Like it's not going to be helpful. Like you need to draft towards your archetype, right? Like in most formats. So yeah, we'll go through and talk about the archetypes, but I just want to say, like, in most formats, Riptide Turtle wouldn't be good, right?
I've heard a lot of people say they love that
But
card.
that card in this format is awesome. It's so good. But I mean, it's only good in a few decks. Happens to be good in about 3 or 4 decks in this format, which is huge. That's a huge number for a card to be good in, in this format for archetypes. Yeah, I mean, it's just a 2-mana 0/5 defender.
I've heard some people
flash.
call it Terminate. It's a blue Terminate.
Yeah, literally blue terminate. It's insane. Card's so good. But it's only, I mean, it's not good in blue-green Constellation, right? It's not good there. It's just super specific in what archetype you're going for, because this format's so deep that you can literally just draft blue-white control in the way that you imagine a constructed deck would play it. You take Ominous Sea, Thirst for Meaning, Heliod's Punishment, Banishing Light, right? All these cards. You take cancel. There's a million counterspells in this format, right? You take all these cancels, so you flash in your turtles, and cancel stuff. Easy win, But that's sweet. Like, that's good that cards like that have a home, right? Like, really niche. This format's about really niche cards, and I like that. I think that's like the sign of a really in-depth format. So that's like my overall impression of the format.
Yeah, there was some format in the past where there were 2-drops that I would just never play in any deck ever. Like, what format had Greenwood Sentinel? The 2/2
the core, core
2 mana
20.
2/2 vigilance that I just wouldn't even consider. I wouldn't pick it.
Dude, you
if I had to last pick it,
that
I'd
card.
cut it. Like, it did absolutely nothing. It never. Yeah.
Well,
anyway.
there's a card like that in this set.
Which one?
Thaumaturge Familiar or whatever. The 1/3 flyer.
Oh, yeah,
the artifact.
Surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That card is there are not that many unplayable cards, and it's funny because we joked about how like this set supports devotion and monocolor in so many ways. Yeah, well, that's why
Well,
that
it's an
card sucks
artifact
so
and
much.
an enchantment set. You can't bring an artifact to an enchantment fight.
Yeah, exactly. It's terrible. Well, the bronze sword card really sucks too. Like this card, but there's not that many cards that are just like you literally just can't play them in your deck. There's like 3 or 4 in this format. That's not that bad.
Yeah. My point was that like
That's pretty good.
to illustrate that this format is kind of the early game is so important in this format as compared to others, is that every 2-drop, or most 2-drops, like have a home somewhere because they fulfill the early game requirements of that archetype. Unlike other formats where like there are just kind of unplayable 2-drops. And that was a mistake I was making early in this format.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Like even the black-white sort of just grindy mid-range deck will play Temple Thief. Just to chip in some damage.
We'll get through in the late game.
Yeah, just maybe get you in the late game. Like, who knows, I mean, it's not ideal, but it could be a 23rd card,
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably a D-graded card, but I mean, it might do some damage, and you might need the early game to stop what everyone else is doing. Like, it's an early game's arms race. Yeah, it's super fascinating. I mean, things could change completely, of course. This is worth noting about Limited, is that even though we're going to list archetypes and talk about cards that matter, if people start adapting to these being the common approaches, you'll have to readjust. Limited isn't. I think most people read limited formats and play limited formats as set, solved, finished formats, but that's just not true. But limited is pretty complicated and difficult, so people just sort of read it that way to make it easier, right? They just have these.
I mean, look at games that
heuristics in their head about what they should draft, pick order, but this format, that's not going to work.
there are other games like classic board games that literally never change, and the meta and the way people play them upgrades and changes over the years. So like, you're not going to assume that people are going to figure out a limited format in 3 months when people haven't figured out like Go or chess in 200 years.
Yeah, exactly. And so this isn't perfect, but if you're unfamiliar with the format, we're hoping that we can go through each archetype of the sort of 10 archetypes and just list off, 4 or 5 of the cards you should aim for. If you have them in your opening pack, what you should be looking for. We're not going to really talk about bomb rares and mythics because, I mean, you're going to take them regardless. And then you can move into one of these color archetypes that matches that whatever bomb. Usually bombs aren't super archetype dependent on how they're going to play out. They're just good on their own. That's kind of why they're bombs, right? Like Kiora Besta Sea God. I don't need to be in blue-white control for that card to be nuts. I can be in blue anything.
Yeah.
I can be blue-green. It doesn't matter. That card's going to be insane. So
So I guess as a note, before we get into the 10 archetypes, there's probably only 10 and maybe some monocolor decks, but what are your thoughts on 3-color archetypes? I've tried it, and I feel like with the extra pips on cards designed for devotion and the general early game importance, like if you stumble early because of your colors, or you can't cast something because of pip requirements, that like I kind of want to stay away from 3 colors in this format.
Yeah, I think there's been times where I've had okay 3-color decks, but it's usually a splash. Like I think you have to be green first off if you're going to splash. It's obviously you got to be green. And I think you can definitely play 2-color. Like I think you can play green, black, or green X and then small X, you know? You can play the splash because the Caryatid's really good. Like the Caryatid's just a good card.
Yeah, the Caryatid's good. There's that Mana Rock is okay if you're like also doing devotion stuff.
Yeah.
Traveler's Amulets in this format too, right?
Traveler's Amulets in the format. Not a huge fan, which is crazy that I'm saying that because there was a time where I put that in. I literally first picked that card. I love Traveler's Amulet in original.
Blue-red spells in Hour of Devastation draft.
In original Theros, man. I love Traveler's
Give
Amulet.
me 3 Traveler's Amulet so I can play 14 land. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but even in the original Theros, I used to play it all the time because I used to play 5-color piles all the time in that format. But I just don't think even with Amulet, even with Omen, the green Omen that searches for land, the way this format plays out, it just doesn't feel as powerful to be in multiple colors to me. But I don't know. Like I haven't really experimented with 5-color piles much as I should have. So, but yeah, my initial experience is that my multicolored, my non, 2-color decks have been kind of underpowered. They felt really behind. They felt awkward.
Yeah, same.
They felt like things didn't line up well. Whereas like the synergy of my opponent's decks just ran me over.
Yeah, like I thought I had a very good teamer deck, like a bunch of rares, like kind of all the good cards, Uro, like Thrix, like all these cards that I should kind of be amazing if I can cast them. And I just never felt like I could quite cast them in time because my opponents played like a 1 and a 2-drop and then some enchantment and then like they got a constellation trigger and then I cast my thing and then it was like, I was just behind.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, well, let's hop into the archetypes. You guys want to kick it off with white-green?
Yeah. I mean, white-green is just sort of a baseline safe, good deck. The first couple archetypes we're going to talk about are just decks that have solid sort of ways to go about doing them. You can take white-green in various directions. I mean, you can go for sort of the constellation package, right? I mean, if you open certain rares, there's like obviously some pretty busted rares in green-white, but it's pretty good with constellation. A lot of the even Cetizen training or whatever, just because it cycles and draws a card is usually pretty good in this deck. Warbriar's Blessing is like obviously obscene and super, super good in white-green because you can either base it on white creatures that have constellation, for double strike, the favored, right?
Favorite of Erois, yeah.
Favorite of Erois. You can sort of be base white creatures for constellation or green. Like there's so many ways you can do it. So, but generally speaking, you're just playing pretty useful creatures and beating down. I mean, it has like Destiny Spinner, which is one of the prime uncommons. I think maybe in the green-white archetype in particular, Destiny Spinner is probably best here than anywhere else. This is an incredible uncommon. It's pretty likely you can get one. You can also play, Sentinelize Dawn. What's it called? The Evangel of Dawn.
Yeah,
that returns 2 cross. So this is a deck that you want like Sentinelize in, right? You're just sort of trying to play enchantments, constellation, grind out value, but you still have pretty just mid-range powerful creatures, right?
Yeah, it makes sense to play like as an enchantress style that can avoid, due to the types of cards that you can play, can avoid sort of the weakness of traditionally like putting enchantments on creatures. Things like Cetizen training cycles, okay, so you're safe there. Or Warbriar's Blessing, like it fights something when it enters, so you've kind of got your card for it. Or if you have Dawn Evangel and like something with an enchantment on it dies, you get a card back. So it kind of mitigates this general risk of playing enchantment, putting enchantments on creatures to allow you to do it in a sort of an aggressive way.
Yeah. Green-white, that's what I mean, but it's a pretty safe deck that lets you sort of go all into a style of, constellation, auras. You can play kind of both, which is nice. Like green-white has both the sort of the uncommon is insane. It makes 1/1s and searches for an R when it comes into play. I can't remember the name. I'll look it up quick.
Siona?
Yeah, Siona, captain of the whatever. Yeah, Pele's. That card's wild. It's so good in this deck because it's sort of if green has a sort of combination of like heroic plus constellation, right? Green white. So you kind of get to do both with this deck. So yeah, it's like pretty safe pick. It's pretty strong. I don't think it's like the best color combination, but I think it's pretty safe if you're.
Yeah. I think a trap that you want to make sure to avoid when you're playing white green is having too many, like, this might sound crazy, but I think having too many good 4 and 5 drops at the cost of not having enough medium 2 and 3 drops. So that, like, otherwise you just won't have anywhere to put your enchantments if your opponent interacts with you at all.
Yeah, like your high cost stuff should be like Daybreak Chimera.
Yeah, which it won't even cost that much.
Yeah. What's good in this deck? Like Heliod's Pilgrim, obviously. You know, go dig up things. Yeah, Siona. These are really good cards in this. I actually think Relentless Pursuit's good here because it digs for things, like these really impactful things. I think Relentless Pursuit normally in other formats, I'd never play a card like this. But I think if you're playing sort of this early game where you're running things out and then you want to start searching for impactful things, right? If that's the kind of strategy we're going to employ in this format, which is what multiple people have talked about, right? Like pros have kind of said this too. Like this seems to be the general consensus from research we've done as well. And looking at what various pro teams have said, various streamers, like we've sort of combined all of this plus our experience. And yeah, this seems to be the case that, you know, it's weird. Relentless Pursuit, like you wouldn't think this card would be that good, but it's actually like pretty playable.
Yeah. I've heard it's at its best in the kind of green-black escape deck because green and black have the best escape cards mostly.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But you can even use it for looking for particular impactful things. But also in green, like you want like Voracious Typhon or whatever, like that card's
that card's very, very good.
That card's like almost a first pickable common. Like if your deck is or your pack is trash, you can start with that thing and you're fine. I mean, it's just late game. It's just going to be a 7/7. But that's about green white. Yeah, next is like blue black control, which I think, or not blue black control. Sorry, just blue black. I don't know because there's lots of ways to play it, but I think this is probably the safest pairing with like some of the most powerful commons and uncommons.
My best decks have been blue black, and the ones from my opponents that I've been most impressed with have been blue black. Just like black feels very strong in this format. Like so many of the black commons are good to great. And sort of similarly with blue, that if you start in blue black, you can kind of end up in a good deck regardless of what happens. If you end up blue based with black removal, or if you end up in sort of black devotion with like blue card draw or just wherever.
Yeah, it's so safe. It can go all over the place. You can play on your opponent's turn really well. Like you can just go full blown control. You can draft turtles and then all the cancels in the world, right? And then just sit behind them. Lord, if you open an Ashiok, an Artress, a Devourer, any of these things are absolutely absurd. Just complete busted bombs. Yeah, but you can go the devotion route. You can play things like Katobo Pass. I mean, black has maybe the best uncommon in Pharika's Spawn, which in blue-black is just...
there's not much I would first pick over a Pharika's Spawn. Like a very good rare.
That rare's got to be insane,
but
right?
Pharika's Spawn is just like 5 edicts.
Yeah, no, I agree. Especially in the green black deck, the escape deck. I mean, we haven't got there yet, but I think Pharika's Spawn just insane in every possible black deck. You know, this card is a windmill slam. Obviously good in blue black. It's good in every single. This is one of the cards that everyone's fighting for, right? This is one of the cards that breaks this rule of the format of, it's only really good in its archetype. Well, that's not true for Pharika's Spawn.
Every black deck wants a Pharika Spawn.
Yeah, it's just a stone cold bomb. What else? The Singer is really good. Thermopylae Singer or whatever. I
guess
really good in blue black or how do they pronounce it? Threnody.
Anyway, yeah.
Threnody.
Well, I know about Pharika's Spawn and another very good card in black, which I kind of thought was a filler common at first, was Rage Guard Berserker.
I think that card's insane.
It's very good. And so, like, I mean, Pharika's Spawn is nuts, but another sort of general note in this format, anything with 4 toughness is better than you think.
Yeah, I agree.
Because cards like Mire's Grasp is such a good card in black, a lot of the early creatures can't fight things that have 4 toughness, so the fight cards get worse. Very good red removal is Fateful End, which does 3 damage. 4 toughness is kind of like this baseline where things below it die easily. And if you have a 4 or 5 cost creature that doesn't have 4 toughness, it usually trades down or isn't worth it.
Man, and black has Mire's Grasp. Jeez. And when they kill your guys, you just bring them back with Omen of the Dead. And then you get to scry, and they cost 1 to cast Omen, and it triggers Constellation. Well, I mean, Omen's better in the white-black constellation sort of grindy value deck, but man...
I guess
Black is packed.
blue and black commons that might not have been obvious includes, but I think you should now. Counterspells, you were saying, are actually playable in this format. Like Deny the Divine is very good at picking escape creatures off the stack, or just sort of, it's just good in this format.
Like normally, would you have played a card that says 3 mana counter creature enchantment in other formats?
No.
No way.
I don't play
man.
counter spells.
People don't play cancel, and cancel's better than that. I mean, I don't feel like it's
Yeah,
not
but like
mattering,
in this format, it's actually good. Like how many people have you seen playing them?
Yeah, Deny the Divine is fantastic in this format.
It's
I
unreal.
see people playing that card all the time.
Yeah, it's so good. Like this format is so different than what you're kind of used to in the typical constructional limited. Yeah, absolutely. Cam's right.
It's supported in part by the flash theme in blue, which isn't as prevalent in other limited formats, so you aren't punished for holding up a counterspell on turns. Because in other limited formats, you can kind of guess when your opponent's holding up a counterspell, and you can choose to do nothing if you're ahead or cast something bad, and they're kind of priced into doing things. But because there's such a flash sub-theme, and there's other things that they can do on your turn, it's more like playing counterspells in Constructed than it is in Limited.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Admire scraps. Ugh.
And then Farika's Libation is another card that I wouldn't have played at first, but I think a black deck wants it.
Oh yeah, it's very. I
Access
think it's
to, yeah.
very good. I killed a Dream Traveler with it the other day.
That's like
Also,
literal best case scenario.
Black's removal in this format is just like ungodly good. Like final death or whatever
Yeah.
is insane. Drag to the Underworld's insane. Venomous Hierophant is super good. What's the 2 mana death touch, guys? The Triton, Mire Triton.
Mire Triton.
That card's very good. Black just has lots of ways to win the board and control the board. It's really, really powerful. So blue-black control has lots of options. Like Cam said, you can even build it with Devotion and just have your blue be, your sort of Thirst for Meaning, Omen of the Sea, right? These really powerful cards that help you just sort of draw. Even Funeral Rites in black is really good.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the green-black escape deck, that card's just actually busted.
I agree.
I'd play 3 to 4 Funeral Rites in green-black escape if I could. It just draws you 3 cards the minute you put an escape guy in the graveyard.
Well, let's talk about this archetype a little bit since we're on it now. Green-black escape.
Yeah, I think my only issue with it is it feels sometimes a bit slow and that you can get run over. Like it's harder for you to get the early board that you want. But if you can with early green, then I think the deck's really good.
Yeah, it feels like it's really carried by its black cards, and the green ones sort of, like you have the green escape cards, and you have some pretty good removal in green because you get access to things like Mystic Repeal and Return to Nature, which are excellent in this format. But it's not like coming as quickly out of the gate as other decks, and it also doesn't have as much of a late game or as much grinding potential as other decks. So you kind of get beat by the blue-black and white-black grindy decks, and you also kind of get outraced by the white-red decks.
Yeah, you got to hit a really good sweet spot. Your power level has to be really high, basically, is the way to do it. But yeah, it can. I mean, it can go nuts. I mean, you just open Plukernos, right? And then you're good.
Yeah, if you just open Plukernos.
I mean, it's green-black escape, right?
Yeah.
Plukernos is absurd. Have you had it in limited yet?
No, but
I've had it a couple times. Whew, let me tell you.
Dude, I know we're talking about limited, but I've been playing this Sultai midrange deck since yesterday with a 1 of Pelucranos, and I've just won so many games I have no business winning because of that Pelucranos.
So I was talking to Benson. He asked me for a blue-white control list, and he's like, "Oh, how you doing?" And I was like, "I haven't played it." And he's like, "Why?" I'm like, "I hit Mythic last night with black-green like black-green garbage. Like black-green adventure."
Yeah.
And like Pelucranos was insane, man. And Benson's like laughing at me. He's like, "Yeah, but you like Elspeth Conquers Death." I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm also playing 4 Questing Beast and like." You know what I mean? Like, and 4 Vivian. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't really care. Like
literally before you guys
back on Plukernos is nuts.
Before you guys came over today, I played against Blue-Green Flash, and my opponent had a Nissa in play for like 6 or 7 turns, and I won with Pelucranos. Like, that was it.
Yeah.
My Pelucranos literally like, killed all of their land and eventually killed the Nissa.
Dude, Pelucranos is an obscene card. It is. I actually can't believe it's not seeing standard play. I think there's an initial hesitation, like, well, ECD, like Elspeth Conquers Death kind of wrecks it, right? It's like, okay, we'll just overload their ECDs.
Yeah.
Like,
That's what this deck that I've been playing is kind of doing.
Yeah, I'm just playing, my deck, I'm literally just playing, what's it called? Well, to get to Mythic or whatever, I was just playing Edgewall Innkeeper, like normal green, like Lovestruck Beast, but aggro, and then just like Questing Beasts, Pelucranos, Vivians,
Just get them.
Yeah, what are people doing? Like people are like trying to cast Deafening Clarion. I'm like, okay, Questing Beast, like I don't know, like good luck. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, one note here that I want to make about green black in Theros Limited that kind of applies to green decks in general. Maybe less white green heroic because you are sort of a go wide deck, but I've seen a lot of green black decks fall prey to being unable to have any evasion on their creatures, being unable to push damage. They have cards that mill themselves, or they're drawing a lot of cards just naturally over the course of a long game, and they end up decking themselves because they get ground out by these other strategies. And so I think green black and green decks in general want something like Wings of Hubris.
Yeah, Wings of Hubris is an underrated card, I think, in this format for the green decks.
Like,
it gives you so much damage to push through in a space where I don't think you really otherwise have it. Like Trample is so important for green.
Trample is very important.
But
you
the
need
problem
some
is
sort of evasion. But Nylea's Forerunner, the sort of general card that you would assume fills that role,
it's a 5/3.
is the problem I was describing earlier when I was talking about 4 toughness. It costs 4 or more, and it has 3 or less toughness, and it just gets removed by so much of the format and trades down with so much of the format that I don't actually want to put that card in my deck.
Yeah, hard agree. But Wings of Hubris solves that issue. In fact, if you're going to put it in your deck.
Yeah.
Because then it stays alive and doesn't trade, does 5 in the air, and all your other, creatures on the ground have trample.
That's true.
Easy. So, yeah, it's quite good. Wings of Hubris is pretty important, I think, for the green decks. So, but yeah, green black escape has lots of options. We kind of skipped over blue white control, but it's similar to blue black in that, the white cards you're looking for are, sort of Heliod's Intervention, Banishing Light. Like
The
Banishing
removal spells.
Yeah, Banishing Light's like an S tier, pick in this format, obviously. Tags anything. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's really powerful. Then you can take some flyers or, chip in however you want to win the game. It
I
doesn't
feel
really
like
matter.
the white creatures in a grindy control deck aren't as good as the black creatures are in that archetype.
Yeah,
So a
100%.
blue-white control deck is going to look more like a blue-black control deck that's blue supported by black removal spells, where you've swapped the black removal spells for white enchantment removal.
Yeah, that's actually sort of how I've won most of my white blue control decks. I had no win condition actually. And this is totally possible. That's why I kind of love this format so much. Is I think one of the ones I had. I mean, to be fair, I mentioned this to you. Like I had an Elspeth Conquers Death, so my deck was like obviously very good.
Yeah.
But I mean, that isn't really why I won. I think I had 2 or 3 Triumphant Surge. I didn't play all of them at once, but I'd board some in if I needed to. Triple Turtle, some counter magic, and then a bunch of card draw, and then 1 copy. I wanted to mention this for people who are playing blue black or blue white control decks. I had 1 copy of what's the Escape Mill card? What's it called again?
Oh,
Just so I can get the name.
Blue uncommon.
Sweet Oblivion.
Sweet Oblivion. Yeah. Super important. So I just won with a Sweet Oblivion. And like I would play like obviously Revoke Existence main, like all those kind of things in my blue white control deck. Like sometimes I'd play like depends if what kind of enchantment removal I get. I'd play like a bunch of Heliod's Pilgrims if I could. But yeah, Sweet Oblivion made it so I didn't need a win condition because it has escape and I can just kind of guarantee that like once they're at 15 cards, I'm just gonna win the game. But the other thing is in the control mirrors, I mean, they're not going to be able to kill you. And Sweet Oblivion is just an auto win in the mirror. And I started metagaming my drafts when I'd play control decks like this, and I just haven't lost. Like I played a guy who just, slammed Dream Trawler, and it's like, okay, well, just start milling you. Like you're not going to be able to hit me 5 times before you mill out, right? So yeah.
Do you like the blue-white control decks better than the like blue-white flyer staggering insight decks?
I just think like the Staggering Insight deck is way riskier. Like blue white's consistent. Like if you get like Birth of Meletis and stuff, it's like, all right, I'm all in. Like I'm so safe behind this. Or like Metamize Prophecies, like an insane card in blue white control. It's actually absurd. Less good at depending on how much counter magic you have to hold up or you want. Like Omen of the Sea is better, but yeah, the problem I have with the Staggering Insight one is like people can just definitely interact with you, right? Like they can blow up your guy that has a Staggering Insight. Like it's riskier. Staggering Insight on its own at the power level is like super high. But the problem I have with the blue white, there's so much removal. There's so much, like it's hard to protect your Staggering Insight creature. I think Staggering Insight's really, really good. But you got to choose your spots, or you're rolling the dice. Like, you're just rolling like, well, throw the Staggering Insight on this thing, and if they don't have removal, then I just auto win. But if they, so I don't know. Like, if you want to, if you're into just rolling the die or whatever, go for it. But for me, like, I think the control decks are more consistent.
Yeah, it feels like the insight decks are really reliant on, how many Alcides of life bounties or how many Karametra's blessings you can have access to back up your...
Yeah, Karametra's blessing is like an absolute must. You should play as many copies of them as you can if you're in the Staggering Insight build. But the problem is I've built like a bunch of Staggering Insight decks. They're just so inconsistent, man. Holy, like I never was able to get like to win, like to go undefeated, to win every game just because... There'd be times where I would just draw only auras or only creatures, never draw the right comp, Whereas blue-white control, it's like, well, I'll just play a turtle and then I'm good for like till like turn 6,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, play a turtle and chill for a bit. Like, I don't know, it's like a lot safer. So I personally, and I could be building the blue-white flyers deck for Staggering Insight incorrectly. I don't know, but in my experience, I like the control version a little more.
The other sort of control and grindy option in the format is white-black. Just auras and killing all your stuff and recursion and just good old white black grinding prison, whatever you want.
Yeah, my favorite archetype, my favorite deck. I don't think it's the best, but I think it's super fun because you can pivot really well. You can play just okay. Well, they kind of stumbled. I'll just play out my weird like scavenging harpy and get their escape creature. Like you can be really scrappy with like really garbage cards and like eke out value and eventually get them. Like I had a white black deck where my top end was just 3 rage scarred berserkers, and I would just put them on a 3-drop when they came into play and just kind of slowly get them with. I think what I was doing was like I had 2 Hierophants, the 3/3 death touch, and I would just make them indestructible this turn, chip in for 4, and then eventually get you with a flyer. Like white black's really grindy, but you can pivot. Like you can go aggro. Like you could have some early drops that get in there. You can be really safe and play Omen. Of the Dead and return your guys. Like, it's just the typical white-black grindy.
Another card that's really good in this deck and other white decks, but in this one I found was the Unicorn. The 4/4 for 5 mana that Constellation taps something.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty good on defense while you're in that phase of the game. And then you can set it up so that like a removal spell kills something and taps something else so you can start pushing damage to put your opponent on the back foot and then kind of win from there once you feel you can turn the corner. But yeah, like when we were talking about blue-black versus white-black, I discussed how they're sort of you just sort of are subbing removal spells from each color. White-black gets removal spells, all of them, from white and black.
Oh yeah, the removal spells, they're insane. You don't need, it's kind of crazy. I played a bunch of white-black, or black-white, just grindy decks versus the control decks that were casting like multiple Thirst for Meanings, and it just didn't matter. I think I was telling you about this. They just lost because my deck just had literally more removal than they had threats in their deck as blue-white control or blue-black control. They just couldn't win. And I just had too much grind. They just didn't matter how many cards they drew because their deck had too much air. Whereas black-white has just a volume of just, good stuff that just is either a removal spell or a creature that's just a good 2-for-1 or good value, good, good rate creatures. That's all it really is. I mean, if you get Hateful Eidolon, you can go all in. Hateful Eidolon is sick. You like with Heliod's Pilgrims, you start taking Aspect. One of my favorite cards in the set, Flicker of Fate, I think is really, really, really good in black-white. Just because of all the different enchantment removal you're talking about, like Banishing Light, Heliod's
Pilgrim, it resets. You can upgrade whatever your enchantment removal is on. The Wombo combo is activate Dreadful Apathy in response, flicker it to put it somewhere else. It's the activation still exiles the creature.
But it moves the Dreadful Apathy over, so you just get to ranch them. I mean, you can double up an Aspect of Lamprey and just get all their cards.
Aspect of Lamprey, another card I thought maybe not super good, but like...
It's been actually not bad for me.
It's been not bad for me because...
I thought it'd be trash.
Yeah, but because you're playing such a grindy game, you need some form of card advantage. So like, it gets cards out of your opponent's hand. It's sometimes okay because like sometimes it fuels their escape, but
I think it's like
because black-white can recur it out of the yard in different ways. Like you can get 4 cards with it.
Yeah, I think it's like a good like 21st, 22nd card. You know, like if you have better, sure, but it can be pretty good. But yeah, Flicker of Fate is good with like I don't know, Gray Merchants.
Yeah, I liked an aspect of Lamprey if you ever have a Heliod's Pilgrim, because then, like, when you cast your Pilgrim, you can go get a removal spell if you need it. But if you're in the right scenario for an aspect to be nuts, you just go get that.
Yeah, and if you do have a bunch of the enchantments for white and you're sort of just, your black is mostly enchantments or just other removal, if you're black-white, you can actually, this is a deck where Reverend Hoplite can actually be pretty good.
The one weakness that I think needs to be kept in mind and sort of dealt with when you're playing black-white is that unless you really seek it out, if you just take these like very good black and white removal spells and good like creatures, you can accidentally end up with no card draw and get ground out by escape creatures and blue card draw. Things like Funeral Rites, I think, are very important. And I would play 2, maybe 3 in a black-white deck.
Oh, in black-white, I'll take as many Funeral Rites as I can. Sometimes you don't end up with them. It's not the end of the world. But I think usually if you have some sort of Omen of the Dead, that kind of makes up for it. Like your card draw is Recursion or the Glory, Rise to Glory. Rise to Glory is like a huge part of doing well in black-white because that means you're getting back, I don't know, one of your Dreadful Apathy that you put in the bin after exiling and a creature. Like, that's incredible. That's like an incredible amount of grind. That's essentially a Demonic Tutor for a removal spell and a creature in the late game, right? Which is better than a Thirst for Meaning will ever be.
Yeah.
So black-white has some really powerful late game play.
It's the best 1-for-1 deck in the format, not close. You just need to make sure that you actually have enough cards to 1-for-1 your opponent.
Yeah. And I think you've got to try and always at least have an escape creature. Like you should.
Yeah. Something to do.
Just get them with the Charger. Just having odd Charger is good enough. I mean, it's going to attack as a 5/3. It's like probably going to get them. So yeah, black-white's really good. Speaking of Reverend Hoplite, pretty good in red-white heroic though.
Yeah, the aggro deck of the format.
Yeah, this deck, the heater.
Yeah, the
number one fastball down the pipe.
Unassuming at first, but figured out by, what's his name?
The Ham TV, man, Kyle Rose.
Yeah.
He figured this one out. Yeah, you got to give him props for this. Yeah. You can take cards like Hero of Nyxborn, which is obviously just like a god tier pick in this deck.
Any pseudo-heroic creature.
Anything that's a hero.
If a hero's in its name, you want it in this deck.
Yeah, there's the white Leonin hero. That's
is it Hero of the Pride?
Hero of the Pride, I believe. Yeah. It's a 2-mana 2/2 that whenever you target it, your creatures get +1/+0. There's also Hero of the Wind. There's also Hero of the Games, which is a 3-mana 3/2 that whenever you target creatures you control get +1/+0. Same as Hero of the Pride. Then the Wind one is the 4-mana 1/4 flyer that does the same thing. Any of these heroes, and then you start getting things like Sentinel Eyes, it's over. This game's over. But the real key here in the Wombo combo that Kyle Rose Ham TV figured out was Wrap and Flames.
Yeah.
Because, man, let me tell you, they survived the Wrap and Flames target, and then your opponent can't block. Hearing him talk about it and play it and watching it is like absurd. He's like, all right, all you got to do is chip him for 6, get him to 14, and then wait till you draw Wrap and Flames, because then you just target your hero and kill him in one shot. He's like, that, and that's what happens, right? So treat your white-red aggro deck like, don't trade. Do not trade your creatures in combat, please. That's something that you just can't risk doing. But you can really combo off on them, yeah. Because you could target if you have 2 heroes, 2, and then one of theirs can't block, but your guys are huge and the game's over. And that's why in this deck, you can play things like Reverent Hoplite, because you don't want to trade. You want to wait until you draw Wrap and Flames and then just crumple them. So you're going to sit around. You mostly want the white creatures, right?
Yeah.
The white aggro creatures. Red creatures kind of suck in this deck, except for the hero.
Did you mention that Omen's good in this deck because you're going wide and playing all these heroes?
Yeah, we mentioned it earlier.
Yeah, I was checking my phone. Okay, you can edit this out. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Leave it in.
Oh, yeah, or leave it in.
But Omen of the Sun, this was when we were talking about Omen of the Sun is really good in this deck. Although Red Omen isn't. Red Omen just kind of sucks. But
Red Omen is a card that I thought would have been good.
Same.
But it just doesn't quite pick off enough.
Yeah, I agree. It's an underperformer for sure. That card, not like the overperformer that is Timrit.
I think another card, did you mention Flicker of Fate in white red?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on.
Flicker of Fate does it all. Yeah, card rules. But yeah, so the white red heroic deck, that's sort of the breakdown of how you want to do it. Anything, Stelly just summarized really succinctly and well. It says hero on it. Pick that card. And then take cards that target those heroes and get them dead.
Easy.
But yeah, Wrap and Flames just does a ton in this deck. It's not really an intuitive way of playing with the card. but it's really powerful in this deck, and you can really abuse it.
Everyone I've heard find out about the Rapid Flames targeting your heroes, they all like, wait, it doesn't say opponent. You can do that. Like everyone,
and they lose their
surprised.
minds. Yeah, it's busted. So yeah, keep an eye out for that deck. That deck's really powerful. I mean, Josh, friend of the show, qualified for the Pro Tour with the Rapid Flame strat a couple weeks ago, courtesy of Old Hand TV. Yeah, that's where he got the idea from.
At the PTQ at GP New Jersey.
Yeah. He got it at GP New Jersey with it. Yeah. And he said it was the easiest top 8 draft of his life because no one knew, right? But if you listen to our limited episodes,
now you know.
Now you know. What else we got?
All right,
blue green mediocre.
Yeah, so the rest of these archetypes are kind of near the bottom of our list because unless we're building them wrong, we don't think they're as good. Yeah, blue-green mediocre, we call it.
It's like fine. I don't know. It's like whatever.
Like it's got the parts of green and blue that other decks enjoy, but I don't, off the top of my head, think of a great synergy between the blue and the green cards.
It's like sort of me at a Magic tournament or like my skill level in general. It's just like whatever. I don't know. Like maybe you win some, you lose some. You don't really,
Yeah.
You just kind of whatever.
Like your problem is that you're not super grindy because you don't have access to a ton of removal.
And nor do you want it because you have to fight for board.
So you need to win early, but the blue creatures you're playing aren't super aggressive, and the green ones you're playing don't have any evasion, so you need to give them evasion somehow. So again, it's a green deck that wants wings if you need a copy in order to get things through. And kind of the star of the deck and the reason to play it is if you get a Eutropia.
Eutropia, yeah. The king of wings, dude. The king of the wings of hubris, man.
Yeah.
He gives everyone flying.
Because then if your constellation triggers can grow things and push damage in the air, like you just have to play to the board. I think there's not enough good removal in these two colors to even bother.
I mean, you'll take the fight card in green, but that's about, I think, the best you can really
Yeah, like I don't even know
with.
if you can spend mana on Ichthyomorphosis.
I agree. Even with Constellation, I don't know. It's tough because like if you're playing Eutropia, which is to me the number one thing you want to be doing in green blue, I think that card's so powerful and so good. Take as many copies. It's a bomb uncommon. You just want as many creatures as you can get because you need ways to jump them and get through in the air. You can clog up the ground, and it just gives you a way to do it. So prioritizing things like wings and Eutropia, I think, are the way blue-green has to win.
Yeah, wings and Eutropia, just having a board presence, playing, I think, as many small enchantments as you can, things like Skull of Grove Dancer, just to have enchantments around and creatures. And then this might be the Brine Giant deck.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, but...
Yeah, it's tough. I don't know. I'd like to hear what listeners have to say because blue-green for me has been an enigma. I do okay with it. Like my drafts will go okay when I get it. Like when I'm like, wait, this actually might turn out pretty well, And then it turns out like, medium. Like even when I think it's like a 10 out of 10, I'm like, now I know better. But at the time, I'm like, wow, this deck's busted. And then it's like not that great, but you can get there.
Your late game is still the green escape creatures.
Yeah.
But in blue-green, you don't really have a way to fuel the escape by like dumping a bunch of cards into your graveyard. Yeah, it's just
you can play the 5-mana 3/5 Constellation draw discard, which is actually like pretty bad, I think. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough. It's a tough archetype for sure. Yeah. What else is tough?
Green red similarly has issues in that
gotta get those wings.
You need the wings. Like you need some sort of evasion. Although there is some synergies between green and red that I think gives this archetype hope.
There are some. Well, you can get the high roll in red green where your deck just is actually unbeatable. It does absolutely have unbeatable draws and unbeatable builds.
If you're really able to bring together the 4 power or greater synergy, if you get a lot of Warden of the Chains and in particular Furious Rise to give yourself card advantage, you can just stomp people with like huge creatures very quickly.
I mean, if you're like green red has arguably so like in general, I think that its performance is pretty medium, but it has the highest ceiling because if your curve is turn 2 Beetle.
Nessian Beetle, very important here.
I mean, it's like the best card in the archetype. Yeah. Turn 3, the 4/1, Loathsome. Turn 4, Furious Rise.
Yeah.
This game's over if you're on the play. There is nothing beating that in limited. I'm sorry. There's no way. Furious Rise is super, super important. But yeah, if you go Beetle, you know what I mean? And then your follow-up is, okay, I attack you with my turn 3 my 3/3 beetle, play a 4/1. Next turn, okay, play this enchantment that lets me draw a card every turn for the rest of the game. My beetle's also now 4/4. Like, well, no, that game's over, man.
And like, while it has this not high, to call back to like the general point that I was talking about the format and how the early drops and starting with an early curve is important. There's not a ton of cards you want to play on 1 and 2 that support the power 4 or greater archetype. Beetle is one of them. But otherwise, the best part of what you can be doing in these colors doesn't start early enough to keep up with what every other color is doing.
Yeah, I agree. That is a big problem, that you kind of start at like, by having 4 power be the sort of defining thing of the archetype. You know, if you control a creature with a 4 or power 4 or greater, you're sort of incentivized to play later creatures, which puts you really behind sometimes. For your sort of beatdown deck that needs to be turning things sideways, it can become really, really awkward. So green-red can be really, really risky. Yeah. So
by the time you get going, other decks could just have a wall up already, or they'll be sitting on removal and they'll
just grind you out.
Like if you have a Warden of the Chained and you play out whatever and they kill it and then your Warden can't attack, like, good luck.
Yeah, exactly. So the way that you ameliorate this is by having things like you have to have Furious Rise.
Yeah.
You have to have really powerful, impactful single cards. You know, Beetle, Furious Rise, Wings to push through damage later if you're really worried. I think Wings is the poor man's version of it, you know. But ideally, yeah, you need something like Furious Rise. You need a way to sort of consistently grind them down. Otherwise, you're going to have a bad time.
Mm-hmm. Have you played against or know much about red-black?
Yeah, I played a few red-black games. Lost and won both with red-black decks.
That's good because we're in Ottawa.
Boo. It's okay. I think it's really, really contextual.
You might have to explain that one.
Yeah, it's the football team.
The football team here is the Red Blacks.
Yeah, Ottawa Red Blacks. Really clever name. Yeah, they put a lot of thought into it, just like they did the public transportation here, you know. Government city. A lot of soul, you know, a lot of creative energy here in this city.
Jeez, tell us how you really feel, man.
You know, just a city of thought and culture, right?
Capital of
basically
our fine country.
a Hellenistic reimagining of.
Hey, there's a lot of like interesting art here. That one art installation.
The giant spider?
No.
Mama?
No, that one's cool. It's like the one cool one. The one art installation on York Street, just big bold letters that say Ottawa.
No.
How would you have thought of that?
Remember when we were reading it? Was it us?
So we were walking to like meet some friends at a bar, and we come around the corner. Right? We come around the corner and we're looking at it the wrong way, and both of us turn to each other and we're like, "What is Awato? What the hell did Awato mean?"
Giant sign that just says Awato.
I remember that. I was there, wasn't I?
Yeah,
and I was like,
and
I was like,
and
that says Ottawa. You idiots.
We were both like, wow, we are very dumb.
We were in such a state that I don't think we noticed until we were past it and on the other side. And I turned around to try and check what Awato was again, and I saw Ottawa. Yeah, every one of those letters.
There's like people in front like taking pictures, like tourists and stuff. And we're like, why would you take a picture in front of a sign that says Awato? Idiots. We are just so dumb. Yeah, it was crazy. Right, yeah, Red Blacks.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That didn't make a lot of sense.
Nailed it.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Yeah, all right. Okay, yeah, Red Black. Things you obviously like. I think I mentioned this before. The sack. There's a lot of cards that let you sacrifice things, right? Lampad's actually a really good card. So I actually think this card, Lampad is. I've come around on thinking this card's really good in just black-white. I think it's really good in blue-black. There's so many grindy games where your opponent's at 4 or 5, you're at a board stall, and you're like, wait, I can just sack everything. They're dead.
Yeah, that's one that we haven't mentioned yet. But Lampad's of Death Vigil kind of does everything you want. Like, it's not super aggressive, so maybe don't play it in those decks. But it comes up the ground early, gives you something to put enchantments on, is an enchantment itself for those synergies to trigger Constellation, and it can just get those last few points in grindy games. Yeah,
it's actually it's been a surprisingly good card for me. I think in a lot of other formats, I would never play that card unless I was in a dedicated sack deck, but I don't know, it's surprising. But so in the red-black sack deck, I mean, there's no shortage of ways to enable you to sacrifice things. Slaughter Priest of Mogus, Lampad,
Soul Reaper of Mogus.
Soul Reaper's like the dream, right? Draw a card. It's kind of expensive. The real thing you got to be really careful about if you're going to go into red-black sack you want things like Aspirant, but you got to get the point of betrayals. You need to have the threatened effects where you're stealing their creatures, because you'll have a million things just by virtue of being in red-black that let you sacrifice creatures. The real key is going to be stuff that lets you gain control of their stuff for the turn, and then you can go into that archetype, but you need to really make sure that you get those cards. If you do, this deck can absolutely destroy people, because think about it, they play all their enchantments out, they put their best possible things, they stack some creature while you steal it, smash them with it, sack it, draw a card, gain some life. Like that game's over, like absolutely over, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's my only thing with that deck. Aspirants, like surprisingly good in this deck. I think the cards are just utter trash literally everywhere else.
Blood Aspirant?
Yeah. But in this deck, it can be really good, even because there are things maybe you're interested in sacrificing. So, because you can sack enchantments, so the omens become better here in red-black sacrifice, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there's that 5-drop 4/5 that you can sack enchantments or creatures to give it menace. That thing pushes a lot of damage.
Yeah, Final Flare becomes playable in this deck. Like, there's a lot of cards that if no one else in your table is in black-red sack, you can get them because they're unplayable in other decks.
Even things like Satyr's Cunning. Like, Satyr's Cunning I've never thought was great, but like if you're not doing much else with your graveyard and it's just a consistent source of 1/1s to sack.
Yeah. And you're also probably going to get your Careless Celebrants, and that card's insane.
Yeah. Oh,
Dude,
Careless
Satyr's
Celebrant.
Cunning won a Pioneer GP. You can't say that card is bad.
Dude, so Satyr's Cunning is actually really, really, really good in red-black sack. Like, really, really good. I can't believe how good it is. It's weird to say. Satyr's Cunning does so much work in that deck just because of the Scophos War Leader, right? That's the name? The one that sacks creature and enchantment? Yeah, right? Because then it makes your Satyr Cunning, or it makes your Blood Aspirant huge, or you can use it with Soul Reaper of Mogus. So Satyr's Cunning is actually, it's so horrendously unplayable in every other deck, but it's one of the best things that you can do in red-black sack. I actually think it's really, really good. So red-black sacrifice just needs ways to not die, and actually they can grind people out. Like Aspirant can get huge. Soul Reaper of Mogus can help. So yeah, you want really, and you can kind of ensure you're going to get Satyr's Cunning, right? And probably Points of Betrayal. Other people aren't going to take them. So this is a deck that if you want to really go all in because you think other people at the table or in the draft won't do it, this deck's probably going to be open, right? Like, I don't think it's that popular right now. It's sort of like a tier 2 or like tier 3 deck that, if multiple people went for it, it'd be a train wreck for you. But I think it's pretty open a lot of the time, right? Am I crazy on this one? Like, in paper, I feel like
I haven't actually drafted it, so I'm not sure, but maybe.
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy. I've had it a few times, and I had one time I had a Croxa though, so it was like hard to say. But yeah, there's ways to do it. But it's funny. It's kind of built with cards that other decks don't really want to play. So
makes sense.
It made me think. Oh, also in green red, Stampede Rider, very good.
Oh yeah.
Of the otherwise like normally bad red creatures. So
All right. Well, the only archetype we haven't touched on yet is blue red.
I left this one for last because
save the best for last.
It deserves to be last.
It's really bad.
Blue red. I tried. Okay, so unlike some of these other things, blue red is one of those where the mechanic they want you to play is very obvious. It's printed on a lot of cards, and there's clearly like supports, like payoffs and enablers. And the mechanic is this: when you cast the first spell on your opponent's turn, trigger whatever. Now, I don't really ever want to draft this again. Or if I do, I'm going to do it when it's mostly blue. So there's a bunch of issues that I think this archetype has. And the main one being that all the red cards and the red payoffs are either not good enough or too vulnerable, etc. So like Arena Trickster is not even that good of a payoff because it's really slow. Dreamstalker Manticore is arguably your best payoff because that 1 damage is very flexible, lets you pick stuff off, lets you push damage, lets you trade up in combat, but it's a 4/2 and it dies to absolutely everything. It dies to all enchantment removal, it dies to Omen of the Forge, it dies to any burn spell, it dies to Myra's Grasp. It trades down, it can't, like, every time I've had Dreamstalker Manticore, I don't want to attack with it because it will trade. I don't want to block with it because it will trade, and I don't want to trade it because I need to keep it around for the triggers. So I've just played this enchantment that pings things.
Yeah. By the time you get to start attacking, it's probably too late.
which like isn't good enough.
You would think, right? Like when I read Dreamstalker Manicore, I'm like, man, this card could be so oppressive and limited.
And it just isn't. And so like, okay.
Yeah.
There's sort of two main reasons why I'm going to keep going on about why I think blue-red's bad. This mechanic, unlike Constellation, can only trigger once per turn on your opponent's turn. So it's not like you can stack this up and like cast two things and ping something down that's 2 power. You only get 1 ping per turn, which isn't like
that's horrible.
Could be fine. Or like 1 counter per turn on your creatures, or et cetera, et cetera. And the other thing is that just by the nature of how you have to play it, it's so slow. I've been emphasizing this entire show how important the early game is and how getting out on the board so that you can kind of do things and snowball from there is particularly important in this format. And blue-red just slows itself down necessarily. So like to use any of these creatures that trigger on my opponent's turn, I have to cast them. Then I have to untap and probably do nothing with that turn and pass so that I have mana up to cast something on my opponent's turn, which they can now react to with all of their mana because it's their turn. They've untapped. They've maybe drawn a card depending on when I want to cast something. So they now get to react to whatever I'm doing. My creature triggers, let's say it's the fish that taps something or it's an arena trickster that grows. And only then the next turn, 2 turns after I've cast it, can I attack with that creature or can I use it? Like, it's just...
Yeah, they're underpowered. Like
every time I've played
underpowered.
it feels like I'm 2 turns behind, even if I'm doing kind of everything that the archetype wants me to.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's a huge problem. I think I think the way that people have won with blue-red, when they do win, is they open the best possible. Like you can definitely, like if you get incredible rares and uncommons, like you just have an incredible tempo game instead of trying to play on their turn. Like you don't play things like Manicore and you have Sea God Scorn.
Yeah.
And you just try and punk people out. Like, you know, you have an Annex, a Sea God Scorn, a Shimmering Chimera. You have with a Eterniday Singer. Like you just have a bunch of good blue-red tempo and you can just smash them, right? That's definitely how blue-red wins. Like blue-red doesn't win by playing the game that the card mechanics say you should. The other archetypes, they win by doing what the card archetypes say, the card mechanics say you should do, right? Red, white, heroic, right? Like green, black, escape, blue, white, control, blue, black, sort of like control, whatever, right? Like white, green, constellation.
Yeah.
They do what their mechanic is supposed to do, but blue-red's mechanic is so bad
Or
that they can't play with it.
if you want to use this mechanic, I think it shouldn't be the red cards. I could see a mostly blue deck, maybe even mono blue, but maybe mostly blue with like some red removal spells that does this all right. Because then you get to play the counter spells, which we said are actually good in this format. There's sort of flash creatures in blue so that you're not like, they can sort of be used the next turn because you can flash them in to trigger something else and then use them immediately. So it's not as slow. If you're mostly mono blue, your Theros Singers actually shrink things so that you can eat them in combat. Whereas if you're trying to have red payoffs, you won't have as much blue devotion. So I think you need to do it that way if you're going to try and do it.
Agreed. Yeah.
Right.
Not a big fan of blue-red, though. I think you can get there with it for sure. I just think that it doesn't have the same sort of satisfying synergy and build paths as the rest of the decks do.
Yeah, makes
Does that
sense.
make sense?
Yeah.
Oh, and another thing why blue-red's bad. One of the best red cards, removal spells cards in general, is Iroas's Blessing.
Yeah, a card objectively rules.
Which you have to play at sorcery speed. It doesn't work with any of your other blue-red like mechanic.
Yeah, that card rules in like green-red. Here's the problem, though, with green-red, which we've already sort of mentioned. Some of the best green-red creatures have a really low toughness. And so, like, Iroas's Blessing kind of, like, not that great. Like, yeah, it does 4 damage, but it costs 4. Like, I don't know. It's like, the card's obviously insane. It's one of the best red commons. I think it's probably the best red common, right? But, yeah, I don't know. Red is just, it just feels so weak as a color. That's why we saved all the red archetypes for last kind of thing. I feel like you got to really have a good a good, green red or blue red deck to go into it. Like things have to be going really well for you. Whereas like green or like other colors, like they just have naturally good. Like what's like Nylea's Huntmaster? Like that card's nuts, and it's just like a green common.
Yeah, the filler commons in other colors, while maybe not great, are somewhat playable. Well, if you look at like a filler common in red, such as Irreverent Revelers, what?
A guy did get my liar the other day with it, dude. It felt so bad. You have no idea, man.
Right,
I lost that game.
There's such a small number of artifacts in this set that it's a 3-mana 2/2 haste.
There's like it just infuriates, like probably not even great. Like Cyclops is pretty bad.
Flummox Cyclops, you have to be very aggressive for it to.
I mean, it's just a 4-mana 4/4. That's all it is.
Yeah, but if you're not aggressive, then it's can't block, can't attack, can't do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's
Incendiary Oracle actually pretty good.
Incendiary Oracle is like pretty reasonable, yeah, for sure. But yeah, just the red sort of generic, even the uncommons, right? Like Manticore is not actually good. Like Careless Celebrant is awesome. The problem is that it probably needed to also be able to go face. Because if you play it on 2 and they trade, or you don't want to block, then you're not even getting value. Like, I don't know. Like, a Nyxborn Brute is horrible.
Yeah, Nyxborn Brute. Same problem that Nylea's Forerunner has, but with less upside.
Yeah, with less upside. Yeah, red is tough. It's a tough out. Like Annex does rule. That card's super good, but all the demigods are super good. Yeah, and Oriata Mountain's Blaze is actually a pretty good 2-drop. There's a few others. The one that pumps, that you mentioned, the Incendiary. But I don't know. Red just feels sort of, I don't know. It feels tough. Yeah, not a huge fan. There was something else in this format, but I mean, this format's incredibly deep. We could keep going, but we should that's the coverage of the archetypes.
Yeah.
Just to give you an idea of what you should be doing, what you should be going for, what each archetype should sort of look like. You can win with any archetype. There's tons of ways to go about it. The demigods are all super powerful, like Renata, Annex, Temerit, Caliphate, Daxos. Lean into archetypes. That's my strategy.
Yeah.
Lean into synergy. Look for 1-2 combos. Look for, hey, this card has like a really cool synergy with this card. Look for those kind of things, but also look for inherently powerful cards like Elspeth's Nightmare is busted. You know?
Let's do a quick run through this spoiler page and see if any cards jump out that either over or underperformed in our experience.
Mantle of the Wolf, Stone Cold busted.
Yeah, like most of the rares.
Yeah, the rares are all. You know what card really actually sucks though?
Terranica?
Ephemia. No, Terranica's busted beyond belief.
I've never been able to have a board state where I want to attack with it that it doesn't die.
I just put a Sentinel Eyes on her. Good to go. Ephemia is horrendous. That card is like actually garbage.
Every time I've played against it, it makes like 3 2/2s.
It just never does anything. That's not enough though. Like I feel like just making 2/2s isn't enough. Obviously, Ashiok's Erasure is pretty bad.
This is actually something that I found a problem with Ephemia was when I was trying it in Standard, is that it fights with your escape.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was really bad for me in Limited. Really, really bad. It's easy to kill.
It's like the only thing that spider kills.
Yeah, whereas like something like Nadir Kraken is holy.
That spider underperformed.
The spider sucked. I thought it was going to be good. The 1/2 spider.
Thing. It doesn't do anything.
It's so bad.
The escape cost is so high.
It just doesn't have a front side.
Yeah, exactly.
This card's terrible.
And the backside.
But I thought it would be good. Like there are
you
tons.
would think,
Well, yeah, because like you're scared of Healer Hawk.
Just
like in your head, you're like,
deep-seated
man, I'm gonna get pounded by a Healer Hawk, man. Like I need to play this thing, but it actually stinks. Yeah. All right, we can keep scrolling here. Like Destiny Spinner.
Destiny Spinner, very good. Protean Thaumaturge, quite good.
That card's
you just
insane.
always get the best creature on the board.
Yeah, it's really good. Obviously, all these rares are like nuts. We don't really need to. Yeah, I mean, rares. Naiad like of Hidden Coves is actually pretty good in blue black because of the amount of cancels you're willing to play.
Yeah, Naiad of Hidden Codes is very good with the counter spells that you want to play. Also, just a 2/3 for 3 is like fine. Triggers Constellation.
Yeah.
Temerit, wildly overperformed. These two cards together, Temerit, Chosen from Death, and Elspeth's Nightmare, both drastically overperform because so many decks in this format win with their graveyard late game. And as soon as you cut that off from that, they have nothing.
Yeah, Temerit is bonkers. Also, the whole uncommon saga cycle, I think, are playable.
Yeah.
The green one's the worst one, but the red one you can do some work with because it gives trample, which is really, really important.
It's important for a lot of archetypes, yeah.
Yeah, for these archetypes.
Omen of the Sun and Omen of the Forge underperformed, in my opinion. Omen of the Forge is fine. Sometimes it can get stuff. Omen of the Sun, the 1/1s never do enough. The life rarely matters.
Yeah, unless you're in white-red.
Yeah.
Omen of the Sea obviously rules, but...
Nyxborn Marauder, I thought might have an
Card's
issue
good.
of dying too soon, but it's good. Like I would play more of them than I thought I would.
Yeah.
Same with Nyxborn Courser and the blue one.
Lyris and Raptured. That card's awesome.
Aeliros and Raptured is quite good. Playing mainboard Agonizing Remorse, I think, has been all right just because it can.
Yeah, it's
There's
actually
kinda-
been good. I've actually played, so I would never ever play discard, single target discard cards in limited, but I have played it just because it tags escape things.
Yeah.
I think it's really, really important. One with the Stars has been really good too because it's permanent.
Yeah.
I did win with the Sage of Mysteries deck for the record.
I tried it once.
I
and
imagine it'd be good in that
It was blue.
Glimpse of Freedom, like blue-white control.
I played it
that card.
actually in blue-green Constellation. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like-
It was the weirdest deck. I had double Sea God Scorn, a bunch of walls, like all defenders, and then just
You got to really
It
be able to
jams.
support it though, because I tried it once.
yeah.
I tried it once as kind of like a sub theme in a deck, and it just turned on my opponent's escape, and I got crushed.
Yeah. I had like
Yeah.
3 of them and a bunch of it was hilarious.
Well, that blue-white control deck you alluded to with Sweet Oblivion as your win condition. This
Yeah.
card's probably pretty good in that.
Yeah, it's
deck,
okay.
too.
I think Sweet Oblivion's probably just better. Dawn Evangel really overperformed for me too. I think that card's really good.
Yeah, Dawn Evangel's good. Favorite of Iroas is really good.
Mystic Repeal is a massive overperformer.
Mystic Repeal just
Holy
insane.
smokes, that card is bananas.
One of the redeeming features of green.
Yeah, it's bananas. That card's so good.
You're telling me Swords to Plowshares for anything, any permanent is really
That
good.
card is bonkers. That card's really good. What else do we got here?
Stinging Lionfish underperformed for the reasons I talked about
that
in
card's
Blue Red.
horrible. Yeah, that card not even just underperformed, actually horrendous. Nyx Herald's pretty good, actually. That card's really good. The green
Nyx Herald's good.
Nyx Herald's very good. Ferris Band Brawler is like been about what I expected.
It's all right.
Yeah.
I think as more people realize that like these creatures with 4 toughness and larger power are kind of what you want to be doing in the late game, it
Man.
starts just being a 6-mana removal spell rather than a creature that sticks around, but it's still good.
I know it's an uncommon, but I don't know if listeners need to hear this. But just to be safe, please don't play Citizen Petitioner in your deck.
Yeah.
Like I know it's an uncommon. It might look alluring, like, hey, I can gain some life. Just as just a friendly reminder that gaining life don't mean anything.
You don't need devotion that badly.
It's that card's horrible and limited. Please don't play it.
Whirlwind Denial just was more playable than I expected because counterspells are more playable. It's still not better than Deny the Divine, but
Yeah, still good.
yeah. Underworld Dreams, probably uncastable. If
Just
you're in mono
straight up
black-
unplayable.
Yeah, it's horrible. That card's just like a
Yeah.
zero.
Never played
It's
that card.
one of the like zeros in the set. Yeah, like 0 out of 5s.
Aspect of Lamprey we talked about, so sort of better than I expected. I don't think I've seen anybody cast a Gift of Strength.
I got hit by it once, but it's bad. Yeah, Hyrax Tower Scout pretty good actually for a common.
Yeah, just
Untapped.
3 mana, 3/3
Actually pretty
untapped.
useful.
Yeah, it's a good beater.
Discordant Piper sucks.
Discordant Piper.
I thought that card would be so good because I love getting value out of stuff. But man, it stinks. It's pretty good in the black-red sack deck, but man, is it garbage everywhere else. You think like in black-white grindy, like, oh man, I'll just play this and like I got blah bodies for days, but like I know one don't matter in this format. So yeah, that's pretty relevant, I think.
It's unlike the other 2-drops that have like their enchantments, so they trigger Constellation or they have sort of some use otherwise. Like you do need 2-drops early, and I might play it if I needed to fill that role to play something on.
for
but,
sure. If you need early play, absolutely, it's fine. But yeah, I just for some reason in my head I thought it'd be really good because it just seems like you're getting a lot of value, but it's not that great.
Nexus Wardens, the first time I played against it, they gained like 20 life, and I thought it was good. But every other time I played against it doesn't do
It's
anything.
bad.
Nexus Wardens
it's
not
bad.
great.
It's like if your deck's bad, then like it'll look good against you, basically. Oh, you know what's a card we didn't mention that's actually really good? Mogus's Favor. That card is actually nuts.
Yeah,
I have killed.
I feel like the first copy of that card in your black decks is like really, really important.
It's so good. It's free. It's like if you have Hateful Eidolon, it becomes just like unbelievable. Like it's so good. I beat a guy because he had an Elspeth and he played it out, and then I just like double Mogus's Favor, like killed the 1/1s, killed it, right? Like was able to kill him. Like Mogus's Favor is really, 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 really good because you only exile 2 cards. I think a lot of the escape cards need to be judged on how many things you actually have to exile. So
On this note of why Mogus's Favor is good, I feel like understanding this and why people think, say, something like Dreamstalker Manticore is good is because there is enough things or that like pinging, doing 1 damage to is all right. Like it's also one of the reasons why Discordant Piper isn't that great. It gets pinged off, it gets killed by this, so does the Goat. So you can kind of start deck building if you have the option to avoid things with 1 toughness to sort of, because I played some games
you
where I
play
had
2/2s and stuff.
where I had a Mogus' favor and it never quite could do anything because none of my opponent's stuff had 1 toughness and I didn't really want to put it on one of my things and trade because I didn't have any. Anyway.
We could have like a whole other episode because we're like just of sideboarding in this format is so important. Yeah, because like I think like with no other formats, I probably wouldn't play like Lean Into the Lost Pride, like a 2-mana 3/1. But I think in this format, like just hitting a card from someone's graveyard is actually really important.
Yeah.
So
Pious Wayfarer I talked about. It's pretty good. Revoke Existence, obviously insane. Same with Return to Nature.
Revoke Rules.
But even things like Setessan Skirmisher. Like I get that.
Nah, that card's been like terrible for me.
It's not great.
So many
like
times.
if you need an early drop and you're trying to play this blue-green Constellation aggressive deck, like I get that it gets huge, it gives you good combat, but again, like it gets picked off by these other good cards.
It's so bad. I tried, man. I had a deck of like 7 of them because I was like, I'm gonna try and just like go all in on this thing and see if I could pop off.
Skull of Grove Dancer though, as a body is, I mean, it's okay. It triggers Constellation.
I think that card's really bad.
It's not amazing, but like
I do think
you
Sunman
can
Pegasus is
use
good.
it to fuel escape. Sunman Pegasus is what were you gonna say? Good.
Yeah, card's
it is
really good. It's like a really overperformed common.
Transcendent Envoy, I think, is a trap. It's just not fast enough, and like you don't really need to discard your auras because a lot of the game decks that are playing this, like,
You think anyone's ever beaten an Athreos?
it's not even in limited.
Oh yeah, right. I don't know.
So
I
no.
haven't seen it played, but like I'm just wondering
it's the
because like,
box promo.
is that what
It's
it
not in
is?
the packs, yeah.
Oh, okay, good. I've never seen it because I was like, man, could anyone beat that card?
Yeah, Transcendent Envoy.
Read what that thing does. You can never beat that card. I mean, it's not limited, but could you ever beat that card?
Yeah, it just makes it so your stuff can't die.
No.
Yeah, that card's unbeatable, man. You can't put that card in limited. That's so unfair. But then they put Dream Trawler.
Transcendent Envoy, I was going to say, I think is a trap if you're playing, like, just because you have auras doesn't make it good. You have to be, like, quite aggressive. Like, if you're putting Impending Doom on it and hoping to high roll, okay, maybe you got a strategy.
All right. Let's wrap this thing up. We're at 90 minutes. Talked about limited long enough. Anything else to say before we wrap up?
I mean, you should probably play this format every chance you get.
Entrancing Liar, not high.
Yeah, Entrancing Liar is the GOAT. It's so good.
If you have a blue-green deck that's, like, not great and you're just trying to suit something up, Mirror Shield's surprisingly good. I didn't know it gave hexproof. And it stops, like, Mire Tritons and Venomous Hierophants and all these dumb things from, like, killing your dude.
Yeah, it's a good sideboard card.
Yeah.
Never main board it.
No.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all for joining the club this week. Make sure, as always, you check out wizardtower.com for all your Magic single needs. Their WPNQ qualifiers start next weekend with Standard as the first event. And definitely check out the DWC Organizational coming to you March 1st at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sign-ups are in the show notes for this episode, as well as on our Twitter page at DWC Podcast 1 and our Facebook page, the Disorganized Wizards Club Podcast. And if you want to support the show, you can head on over to patreon.com/DWC Podcast. And however you listen to the show, whether it's Podbean, iTunes, any podcast app, leave a review, rate the podcast, share it with your friends. Everything helps, keeps this thing growing and bring it to new listeners. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next week.
No limited portion in the organizational, but you can crush some drafts to win wild cards for your standard deck.